I went to a cabin in the mountains for a weekend. Just me, some snow, and what I thought would be peace. I wanted to escape from the city and refresh my mind after a long design project. The cabin looked cute and cozy when I arrived. Snow covered the ground, and the sun was shining through the windows. Felt nice, like a hug. The first night was dreamy. I set everything up and settled in. Later, I woke up to a loud thump. It startled me, but I told myself it was just the cabin settling. I went back to sleep, not knowing it was just the first sign of something wrong. The next day was calm but strange. I went out to enjoy the fresh snow. Everything felt peaceful, almost too peaceful. That night, I sat by the fire, reading, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I brushed it off as cabin fever. Then, around midnight, I heard footsteps outside. Or at least I thought I did. My heart raced. But I decided to ignore it and try to sleep. Again, I woke up to thumping. This time, it felt like someone was right outside. I laid still and listened. The sound was by the door. My heart pounded. I didn't see anyone. Still, I noticed footprints leading to my cabin from the woods. I hadn't seen anyone earlier. I felt a chill wash over me. Maybe it was just a neighbor? But there was no one else around. The next day, I checked outside. The prints led straight to my door. But there were no tracks leading away. It made my gut twist. I kept glancing at the trees, feeling eyes on me. I saw shadows darting past the window, but every time I looked, nothing was there. That night felt different. Muffled voices floated through the air, but I couldn't tell where they came from. I stepped outside, but it was pitch black. Just me and the cold. I felt something lurking just out of sight. I stared back at the cabin, feeling a pull to go inside. Then I saw something by the tree line. A figure stood too far away to see clearly. My breath caught in my throat. I whispered, "Is someone there?" But the only reply was silence. I took a step back and stumbled in the snow. Then I heard a whisper. I couldn't make out the words, but it sent shivers down my spine. I dashed back into the cabin, locking the door behind me. I never felt so alone and so watched. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone or something was there with me all weekend. As I packed up to leave, I kept glancing toward the tree line. I still can't shake the idea that I wasn't really alone that whole weekend. I don't know what it was, but the memory still chills me. What did I really experience out there? I don't think I'll ever know. The drive home was tense. I replayed the weekend's events in my mind, trying to make sense of them. The trees whizzed by, their skeletal branches mocking me. Was I losing my mind? I needed answers, but I wasn't sure where to find them. When I got back to the city, I told myself it was just my imagination. The woods play tricks on you, I muttered. But deep down, I knew something was off. That night, I couldn't shake the images that danced in my mind. The figure in the fog, the whispers in the dark. They haunted me. The following day, I decided to reach out to the cabin owner. I thought maybe she would have some insight. I found her email online and sent a quick message, describing my experience and asking if anyone else had reported strange occurrences. I hit send and waited. Hours went by, and I tried to focus on my work, but I couldn't concentrate. Finally, my phone buzzed. It was a response. I opened the email and my heart sank. "Thank you for your message. I'm sorry to hear you had a troubling experience. If you're open to it, I'd like to share a story from when I was a child." Curiosity piqued, I read on. She explained that the cabin had been in her family for generations. Some family members believed that certain spirits roamed the woods at night. "I used to hear voices too," she wrote. "Felt like they were calling for me. Each word felt like a brick. Was I just another victim of the cabin's eerie history? I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd inadvertently awakened something during my stay." I responded, asking for more details about these stories. Days went by without a reply. I felt anxious, edged on by the silence. I needed to know if this was just folklore, or if something darker lurked beyond the trees. A week passed, and I finally decided to do a little digging myself. I went online to search for local legends about the area. It didn't take long to find something unsettling. There were mentions of travelers who had gone missing in those very woods decades ago. People claimed to have seen glimpses of figures between the trees. They described cold spots in the forest and echoes of laughter carried by the wind. With every word, I felt a growing dread. I opened a forum where locals shared their stories. Then one post caught my attention. If you see something in the woods, don't call out. It will come for you. I felt a chill sweep over me. My fingers trembled as I typed my response, but I decided to share my experience. I saw something. That was when the replies began flooding in. What did it look like? Did you hear it? You need to go back. I read those words in disbelief. Go back? The thought sent a wave of panic over me. But something else stirred inside. I needed to find out what happened that weekend. Then, as I scrolled, I saw an image posted by someone from the same community. A blurry photo taken outside a cabin. My stomach dropped. The figure in the distance looked familiar, too familiar. Couldn't breathe. That figure was standing in the exact spot where I had seen something that night. I had to know more. I spent every evening obsessing over the blurry photo. I zoomed in, trying to make sense of the figure, but clarity eluded me. It haunted my thoughts and invaded my dreams. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every detail in my mind. What did it want? Why was it there? The next day, I finally made the decision to return to the woods. I felt a mix of fear and determination. I grabbed my car keys and headed out. The drive felt surreal, like I was entering a dream I couldn't wake up from. I pictured the fog rolling in again and the whispers that had chilled my spine. When I arrived at the cabin, I noted how different it looked in the daylight. The sunlight painted everything in warmer tones, but the trees still loomed over me, casting shadows that felt too long. As I stepped out, I took a deep breath and forced myself to move towards the back of the cabin. I needed a record, something tangible to grasp onto. I pulled out my phone and began recording a video, explaining what had happened in the days that followed my first visit. I wanted proof that I had come back. Perhaps it was proof that I wasn't losing my mind. Here's where I saw it, I said, pointing towards the edge of the tree line. I saw a figure right there. My voice trembled slightly, fear creeping in as I recalled the terror of that weekend. As I continued to film, I noticed the wind picking up. The trees swayed, their branches creaking like old bones. I shivered and wrapped my arms around myself. That's when I heard it whispers. Soft, barely distinguishable words carried on the breeze. I felt my heart race. Is someone there? I called out, testing the limits of my courage. Silence. Just the rustle of leaves. I turned to leave, convinced my paranoia was getting the best of me. But then, I heard it again clearer this time. Come back. My skin prickled. It sounded like a child's voice. I stepped back, glancing toward the tree line, desperate to see who or what was calling out. Without thinking, I rushed towards the sound. The underbrush crackled under my feet. I tore through the trees, my breath coming fast as anxiety coiled tightly in my chest. I pushed branches aside, calling out, "Hello? Is anyone there?" And then I saw it, a flash of white. I rushed closer, only to find an old, decaying doll half buried in the leaves. The sight twisted my stomach. It was eerily pristine despite the years. In its glassy eyes, I thought I saw something shift. Perhaps it was just a trick of the light. But before I could react, the whispers rose again, drowning me in confusion. Find me. Felt like the trees themselves were speaking. That chilling voice beckoned me deeper. I paused, staring at the doll, sweat prickling at my brow. Should I find whatever or whoever was calling? Or was it a mistake to go deeper into the woods? Fear churned in my gut, battling curiosity for dominance. As I turned to flee back to the cabin, I felt a cold breath against my neck, freezing me in place. That's when I saw it. The indistinct figure from my dreams stood just beyond the tree line, watching. My breath hitched as I stood frozen, the figure looming in the shadows. It was still just a blur, but it felt all too real. My instincts screamed at me to run, but my feet were rooted to the ground. I squinted, trying to discern any features, but the figure remained indistinct, like a mist that shifted with the wind. Who are you? I yelled, hoping for a response. The whispers around me grew louder, a chilling chorus that seemed to echo through the trees. Find me, they urged again. My heart pounded in my ears, drowning out the rustle of leaves. Then, in a strange turn of events, the figure seemed to materialize. Took a small step towards me. Panic surged through me, twisting my stomach. I stumbled backwards, dropping my phone, the screen cracking against a rock. The sound of smashing glass sent another wave of dread through me. I don't know what you want, I shouted, voice quivering. Instead of answering, the figure raised a hand. It was then that I felt something tugging at my hair, cold fingers weaving through my unkempt strands. I gasped, swatting at my head, but nothing was there. Was I losing my mind? The figure continued to beckon with that outstretched arm, and in a moment of sheer urgency, I turned and ran. Twigs snapped beneath my feet, my heart racing with every breath. I couldn't hear the whispers anymore, just the thudding of my heart and the drumming of panic in my ears. I burst through the trees, nearly colliding with the cabin wall. I yanked the door open, slamming it behind me and leaning against it, gasping for air. I stared at the door, half expecting to see the figure waiting outside. Instead, all I heard was the stillness of the woods. I reached for my phone, but the shattered screen mocked me. No proof, no documentation of this insanity. I couldn't stay here, this wasn't just fear anymore. It was dread, suffocating and relentless. Just as I turned to flee from the cabin, my eyes landed on the doll still perched at the corner of the cabin. It seemed to glint, the afternoon light illuminating its dirty porcelain face. A sickening realization washed over me. That doll hadn't been there when I arrived. I hesitated, feeling the fear creeping up my spine. The figure, the whispers, the doll, it all felt interconnected. Could I really leave without answers? Moments later, I grabbed my car keys, unease swirling inside me. I could either abandon this place or dive deeper into whatever was ensnaring me. That decision was taken from me when I suddenly heard a knock at the door. The sound echoed through the cabin, sharp and uncompromising. I froze, staring at that wooden barrier, my mind racing. My heartbeat quickened. "Who's there?" I asked, voice trembling. No answer came, but I felt the presence of someone outside, waiting, watching. Should I open the door? Or was stepping outside the worst mistake I'd make yet? Every fiber of my being told me to stay put, but curiosity gnawed at me. What if someone really needed help? What if it was just the wind or a trick of the mind? I took a breath, trying to steady myself, before slowly inching toward the door. "Hello?" I called out again, my voice quaking. With a shaky hand, I grasped the door handle. I hesitated, uncertainty flooding my mind. The knock came again, louder this time, almost impatient. My heart raced. There was no way I was going to be able to ignore it. Gathering whatever courage I had left, I pulled the door slightly ajar. A gust of cold air rushed in, nearly knocking the breath out of me. I peered outside, eyes struggling to adjust to the dim light. Nothing. The clearing in front of the cabin was empty. I stepped back, confusion clouding my thoughts. Then, as I stared into the gloom, I caught sight of something in the snow, just beyond the porch. Something small and dark. Instinctively, I opened the door wider and stepped cautiously outside. The snow crunched beneath my boots as I moved toward it, dread mingling with a strange sense of curiosity. With each step, I felt closer to whatever it was that seemed to be drawing me in. A soft voice in my head whispered, "Find me." Finally, I reached the object, a small, hand-carved wooden figure, expertly crafted but weathered as if it had been out in the elements for some time. I picked it up. It resembled a tiny doll, a crude representation, but one that sent shivers down my spine. The same unsettling feeling from the cabin washed over me as I examined it. There was a familiar mark on its base, a swirl I had seen before. It was the same symbol etched on the doll inside the cabin. My pulse quickened. Why is this here? I muttered to myself, my breath coming out in clouds that mingled with the icy air. The moment I turned the figure over in my hands, I froze. The unmistakable initials of my grandmother were carved into the wood. She used to carve dolls and figures when I was a child. Panic flared anew as I took a step back. How had it come to be here, in this remote area, far from where I had last seen her work? A voice in my mind screamed at me to leave, yet the image of that figure lurking in the shadows stung behind my eyes. Is someone there? I called out again, looking around, my ears straining for any sound. Only the whisper of the wind responded. I turned back to the figure clutched in my shaking hands, and suddenly, I felt its cold fingers brushing against my neck. I spun around, heart pounding, but there was nothing there. My skin prickled as the weight of the moment pressed heavy against me. Then I noticed something glinting in the light. Just a few feet away, half buried in the snow, was a small, worn-out diary with a lock resting beside it. Something deep within me urged me to take a step forward, to discover what lay within those pages. I hesitated, battling the urge to run. That's when I heard it, a soft laughter drifting through the cold air, brighter than the sun and more haunting than my worst fears. Chilled my thoughts. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The laughter echoed again, and a shiver crawled up my spine. It seemed to swirl around me, teasing and taunting. I glanced back toward the cabin, the door still ajar, opening like a mouth ready to swallow me whole. The warmth inside felt inviting, but I knew I couldn't return there just yet. With trembling hands, I knelt in the snow beside the diary, its leather cover cracked and worn. The lock looked old, rusted at the hinges. A surge of curiosity battled with fear. Who did it belong to? What secrets lay within? I reached for the diary. The moment my fingers brushed against it, a gust of wind whipped around me, swirling the snow up into a frenzy. Instinctively, I tucked the wooden figure into my coat pocket for safekeeping. I needed both hands free to pry the diary open. With one final tug, I pulled it loose from the snow. The weight of it felt oddly comforting in my hands. I stared at the lock. I couldn't help but wonder if it was meant to keep something inside safe or to keep me from discovering its contents. Either way, my heart was racing. I glanced back toward the clearing, half expecting someone to emerge from the trees. But there was only silence. My breath fogged in the cold air, and I was alone. I looked down at the diary again. I took a deep breath, ready to break it open. But just as I started to pry it apart, I heard the laughter once more, clearer now, close enough that I almost felt a presence behind me. My pulse quickened. Instinct kicked in and I turned sharply, but still I saw nothing. That's when I noticed footprints beside the cabin, leading toward the treeline. They were small and delicate, almost childlike. My heart dropped as a new sense of dread took hold. There was no way that these tracks belonged to anyone else out here. I knew I had to choose, follow the footprints or stay with the diary. I felt the pull of both, but the laughter echoed in my ears again, urging me forward. My grandmother's figure suddenly felt heavy in my pocket, as if it were a reminder of something I was forgetting. Gritting my teeth, I forced myself to move toward the footprints. Each step felt like a mistake, yet I couldn't resist. I had to know. The wind howled around me, and the forest seemed alive, whispering secrets that only deepened the unease in my chest. I followed those footprints, heart pounding, and increasingly aware of how alone I truly felt. Was this a mistake? The snow crunched beneath my feet, and I could hear the faint rustle of branches above me, like the trees themselves were warning me to turn back. Finally, I reached the treeline. The laughter stopped, replaced by a haunting silence that made every hair on my body stand on end. I peered into the shadows cast by the branches and saw it, a figure standing still, watching me. My heart stopped. "Who are you?" I managed to whisper, the dread creeping into my voice as I felt the weight of 1,000 unseen eyes on me. There was a pause and the figure stepped forward. My breath caught in my throat. That's when I recognized the simple shape. It looked like one of my grandmother's dolls. But it was lifeless, its empty eyes staring straight through me. My legs felt like lead as I took a step back. Just then, I remembered the diary in my hand. I had to get back. Whatever was happening here, I needed to understand. But in that treeline, the answer felt just out of reach. and as I turned to run back toward the cabin, I heard it again, a soft laughter, creeping closer. I sprinted, my feet pounding against the cold ground, desperate to escape the unsettling presence of that doll. Each breath was sharp in my chest, and my heart hammered as I fled back toward the cabin. I felt the weight of unseen eyes on my back, and the laughter echoed again, now sounding almost playful. My grandmother's figure pressed against my side, somehow both reassuring and eerily out of place. As I reached the cabin door, I yanked it open and stumbled inside, slamming it shut behind me. The door rattled against the frame and I leaned against it, gasping for air. The warmth of the cabin felt like a lie. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly feeling the chill seep deep into my bones. I glanced around the room, searching for comfort but finding only shadows. The fire crackled softly in the hearth, providing a flickering light that chased away some of the darkness. I thought about the diary, my hand drifting toward my pocket. It was still there, the weight of it a reminder of the unknown. I needed to know what secrets it held, but after what I had just seen, what if it led to more danger? Yet my curiosity was more potent than my fear. I moved hesitantly to the table, where the light from the fire illuminated the leather cover. I sat down and placed the diary before me, eyeing the rusted lock as if it were a slithering snake prepared to bite. Taking a deep breath, I grasped the lock and examined it closely, searching for a way to open it without damage. I could feel a sense of urgency winding through me. Time felt thin, as if the laughter and the figure outside were waiting. My fingers brushed the cold metal, and a sudden thought struck me, a memory of a key that had hung in my grandmother's house, on a hook in the kitchen. But could I really go back outside? The stakes felt dangerously high. The laughter lingered in my ears, now sounding less like a child's and more like something otherworldly. I shuddered, battling the urge to glance out the window. Then, just as I was grappling with my fear, I heard it again, a soft thud, muffled but distinct, coming from outside. I got up, moving to the window, dread pooling in my stomach. Peering out, I scanned the treeline, half expecting to see that doll-shaped figure. But all I saw was white endless snow and dark branches swaying ominously. What the hell? I whispered to myself. Another thud rang out, this time closer. My pulse quickened. It sounded like footsteps, deliberate and slow. Was someone circling the cabin? I stepped back from the window, panic gripping me. Whatever was happening felt like it was converging around me. I looked down at the diary, then back to the door. A sense of impending doom had settled into my bones, and despite every instinct screaming at me to hide, I instinctively felt drawn to whatever lurked outside. And then, without warning, the door rattled again. This time it wasn't the wind. It was someone or something trying to get in. My heart raced as I backed away, breath quickening. Just before I turned to find a hiding place, I caught a glimpse of movement outside, a flash of something dark darting across the snow. I froze. I thought about the footsteps outside, the bones of the little doll, and how close everything felt. If I didn't act quickly, I might not get another chance. The door rattled again, more insistent this time. I pressed my back against the wall, my mind racing. Fear clawed at my throat. Who or what was out there? The thuds had a rhythm, deliberate and patient, as if whatever it was savoring my unease. I darted around the room, heart racing. The small cabin offered few places to hide. A quick look behind the curtain showed only the thick white veil of snow. I shivered, trying to quiet the panic rising in me. In a corner, the diary glimmered under the flickering light, whispering secrets I didn't yet understand. Moving cautiously, I picked it up again, fingers trembling against the cool leather. I thought of the key. If I could only find it, perhaps I could unlock its mysteries and uncover the truth. But I couldn't risk going outside. The shadows felt alive, waiting to pounce. As I settled back at the table, the rattling at the door grew louder, more demanding. I glanced once more at the window, my breath hitching as I caught another dark shape. This time it lingered, peering back at me from the treeline, unblinking. I ducked away, trembling. I forced myself to focus on the diary. With each breath, I worked to push the fear aside. I needed to know what was inside, and if it offered any hint of what was unfolding around me. I fumbled with the lock, tracing fingers along its edges, desperation mingling with curiosity. I fully expected the weight of something pressing down on me, but instead, all I felt was silence. Then came a sudden crash. The door flew open with enough force to rattle the windows. I barely had time to react before I heard heavy footsteps thumping into the cabin uninvited. My breath stopped as I turned slowly, tension flowing through my veins like ice. The figure at the door stood tall, obscured by shadows. The only discernible feature was a long, dark coat that flared slightly as it moved. My heart raced in a frantic rhythm. Only one thought pulsed through me. I had to get out, but I hesitated, eyes locked onto the figure. I felt drawn to it, as if something about this presence called to me. My thoughts raced as I considered maybe, just maybe, it was connected to the diary. I desperately needed to understand more. And then, in a voice low and smooth, it spoke. You should have locked the door. Every hair on my body stood on end. I thought of the chain that could have secured the door against unwanted visitors. But I hadn't. My throat felt dry. What had I let in? That S when I noticed something glinting at its feet. I felt my breath hitch again as it came into focus. A small, rusted key lay in the snow just inside the threshold. I knew it. It was the same one I remembered from my grandmother's house. Fear wrestled with a surge of hope. I was certain this key could unlock the diary. As the figure stepped closer, I made my decision. I reached for the key, not knowing what would happen next. And just as quickly, the darkness enveloped the cabin, swallowing everything. I felt frozen in place, surrounded by the thick, suffocating darkness. My eyes strained to adjust, but all I could see was the vague silhouette of the figure. The hairs on my arms stood tall, and a cold sweat broke out on my brow. The key lay just beyond my fingers, the only tangible thing in a world gone black. Do you want to know the truth? The voice purred, creeping along the edges of my sanity. It was unnerving, like a spider weaving a web of uncertainty. You have to make a choice. I swallowed hard, the sound echoing in the silence. I wanted to scream, to run, to find a way out of this nightmare. But when I looked again, the key sparkled faintly in the gloom, glinting like a siren calling me closer. What truth? I stammered, trying to sound braver than I felt. Why are you here? What do you want from me? The figure took another step forward, the darkness seeming to conform to it, lingering like smoke. You are holding on to something that needs to be set free. A chill wrapped around me, filling the spaces between breaths I dared not take. The longer I stayed, the more captivated I became by the promise implied. What if the diary held answers to questions I never knew to ask? What if releasing those secrets somehow freed me from this moment? I couldn't let fear dictate my actions any longer. I lunged for the key, resolute. My fingers grasped the cool metal, lifting it high. Then tell me what it unlocks, I demanded, though my voice trembled. Only if you're ready to accept it, the figure replied, an amused rasp in its voice. It felt like a warning, a riddle designed to slip through my fingers no matter how tightly I grasped it. With rapid heartbeats, I rushed back to the table, the diary lying just as I had left it. I held the key tightly and stared at the lock. What if it was a gateway to something I couldn't handle? Still, the need to uncover the truth was unbearable. The key slid into the lock with surprising ease, but I hesitated, heart pounding. I could hear the soft rustling of the figure behind me, a reminder that I was not alone, and that made me uneasy. In that moment, doubt flooded my thoughts. What if unlocking the diary unleashed more than just memories? I looked back, meeting the dark gaze of the figure. Are you sure? Truth is often darker than the lies we tell ourselves, it replied, tone dripping with certainty. I took a deep breath, pushing aside the urge to flee. I turned the key. The lock clicked open, and the cover creaked as it sprang ajar. That S when I saw it. The pages flickered in the dim light, revealing scrawled images and frantic writing, each more disturbing than the last. My breath caught in my throat as the room filled with an unsettling whisper of wind, as if the cabin itself had come alive. As I leaned in closer, the atmosphere changed abruptly, and my heart dropped. I wasn't prepared for what I was about to uncover. And just then, a new sound pierced the silence. The door creaked softly, as if something was lingering in the threshold. Someone or something was watching me again. I could feel the presence just beyond the door, a tangible weight pressing down on me. I glanced over my shoulder, unable to shake the sensation that whatever waited there was hungry for my fear. My heart raced, pounding against my ribcage like a caged animal desperate to escape. The whispering wind seemed to grow louder, swirling around me as if urging me to uncover more of the diary's secrets. With shaking hands, I took a deep breath and turned my attention back to the diary. The pages fluttered slightly as if vibrating with energy. I felt a mixture of dread and curiosity as I scanned the words hungry, desperate scrawls that resembled a frantic letter written in haste. The more I read, the heavier the air around me felt. There were warnings about the forest, about strange occurrences that plagued those who lingered too long. What did you experience? The question hung in the air, felt but unspoken, as the figure beyond the door pressed in on my senses. Was it waiting for me to make a choice? To turn and confront it, or stay lost within the pages before me? Suddenly, a resonating crack echoed through the silence, pulling my focus away from the book. The door shuddered again, this time slamming hard against the wall, swinging open to reveal nothing but darkness peppered with fleeting glimpses of movement. They danced just at the edges, blurring before I could catch them. A low voice whispered on the wind, "Find me." The tension gripped me, and I turned once more to the diary, realizing that I needed to comprehend its final messages. I needed to learn whatever I could before deciding how to confront what lay outside. I was caught in a web of desperation. Was it truly a threat, or simply a remnant of the past, a lost presence calling out from an unfathomable void? The words sprang to life, recounting tales of those who had lost their way among the trees, drawing closer to the very thing I had seen, a figure trapped between realms, neither fully here nor there. And then I found it, a passage that sent my spine crawling. They crave connection, an invitation to be known, it read. If you hear them, tread carefully. They are not what they seem. My breath caught in my throat. I needed to escape, to flee before whatever lingered at the door perceived me as part of its story. No longer was this a matter of understanding. It was a fight for survival. I slammed the diary shut, pushing it away as if the very act of closing it could sever whatever hold it had on me. But just as I stood to make a break for it, the room darkened. Shadows pooled against the corners, creeping along the walls toward my feet. I felt an overwhelming chill grip me as I heard the whispering grow louder, merging into a single voice that echoed through the cabin. "Come back." "No," I shouted, grabbing my belongings in a frenzy. This couldn't end like this. I wouldn't be trapped here, lost among forgotten stories. But as I reached the door, I hesitated. I had to make a choice. I glanced back at the diary. What if it held a key to understanding, to ending whatever was calling to me? But as I stood there, I felt the air shift, heavy with anticipation. Whatever waited outside wasn't just a figment of my imagination. It was very real. I could feel its presence, like an electric pulse drawing me in. With one final glance back at the diary, I swung the door wide open, bracing myself for whatever fate awaited. The snow fell thickly, blanketing everything in silence. Yet now, I could hear them, voices in the wind, whispering my name, beckoning me forward. I felt a gentle tug at my heart, a push toward the unknown. The trees loomed ahead, casting long shadows, but I stepped out onto the fresh snow, the crunch underfoot grounding me. But as I stood there, heart racing, I felt the warmth of the cabin fade, and that palpable excitement swirled into uncertainty. Was I meant to confront this enigma, or had I just drawn closer to my own doom? In that moment, questions buzzed around my mind. What happened to those who lingered? Did they truly vanish among the trees? With the wind at my back and the chilling laughter echoing in the distance, I turned toward the woods, ready to face what lay ahead. Those lingering secrets and the precarious balance between this world and the next beckoned me, and though I tread the path of uncertainty, I felt an undeniable urge to discover the truth, whatever that might mean. Yet, as I took my first step into the forest, a shadow flickered at the edge of my vision. I glanced back once more at the cabin, now just a silhouette against the pale sky. A shiver ran through me, not just from the cold, but from the knowledge that I was stepping into something far deeper than I could comprehend. And even as I ventured into the unknown, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning, that the real story was unfolding, waiting for me to unravel it amidst the whispering trees.